Have you noticed how every time South African politics starts cooling down, something happens that throws the whole country right back into chaos? Well, this time, it was the Constitutional Court dropping a judgment that shook Parliament, rattled the ANC, and gave Julius Malema and the EFF a massive political moment. And trust me, Malema did not waste even 1 second before jumping in front of microphones with that signature, "I told you so" energy. The Constitutional Court ruled that Parliament acted unlawfully and irrationally when it decided not to adopt the Section 89 independent panel report into the Phala Phala scandal back in December 2022. That decision protected President Cyril Ramaphosa from moving into a full impeachment inquiry at the time. But now the highest court in the land has essentially said Parliament messed up the process. And if you know Julius Malema, you already know he treated this judgment like a Champions League final victory. But before we break it down, let's listen to what he had to say. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment and share. Now let's get back to the video.
Today, the Constitutional Court hands down judgment in an application brought in terms of Section 167, subsection 4E of the Constitution by the Economic Freedom Fighters, the EFF, and the African Transformation Movement, the ATM, to whom I shall collectively refer as the applicants. I start by taking full responsibility for the delay in producing this judgment concerning an extremely difficult matter of great national importance, and I tender my sincere apology to the parties, my colleagues, and fellow South Africans for the inconvenience it has caused. The applicants seek an order declaring as unlawful and irrational a decision of the National Assembly taken on 13 December 2022 to not adopt the report of the independent panel, hereafter referred to as the report, and refer it to the Impeachment Committee. This decision was in the context of an impeachment inquiry into alleged violations of the law and the Constitution and alleged serious misconduct by the President of the Republic of South Africa, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, in connection with events that occurred at his private farm, the Phala Phala Wildlife Game Farm. The applicants further seek a declaratory order that Rule 129I of the Rules of the National Assembly, which I will call the NA rules, is inconstitutional.
You came here and said Phala Phala must be released. Today Phala Phala is out, and the Constitutional Court has agreed with you that Ramaphosa must be subjected to impeachment in Parliament. That the panel report must be taken to impeachment process, that vote of the ANC was corrupt, it was unconstitutional, it is invalid and therefore set aside. Like we told them on that day, you cannot vote to protect crime. You cannot vote to protect corruption, because every vote must be accompanied by rationality. Can this vote meet the rationality test? What was supposed to happen is that after the panel brought a report, we should have sent the report straight to impeachment, so that all the prima facie evidence that they say exists can be canvassed in a transparent manner, where South Africans will get to see the truth through an impeachment process. So impeachment process is like Madanga Commission, it's like ad hoc commission, where Cyril is going to be called and is going to be put on the seat there, and is going to be asked, where did you get the dollars? How did you bring the dollars into South Africa? Why did you put them into the sofas? So I'm going to be in that committee. Because we want to go and see the sofas where the money was there at Phala Phala. Because Phala Phala is a crime scene. We have to visit the crime scene to see what happened in that particular farm where crime was committed. We told them that for as long as the EFF is alive, Phala Phala will never die. And they never believed us. So when you are impeached, comrades, it's not a motion of no confidence.
Yeah.
Once we conclude that you have undermined your oath of office, you have committed crime, then we go to Parliament to impeach you. There is no impeach. We take away the salary. Because remember, President is paid for the rest of his life. So we remove you from the office, we take away the salary and all the benefits, including the blue lights. So the daughter gonna lay na Ramaphosa go take rent. So Utoya Villa takes rent. Because even the status of a former president is taken away. He's no longer a former president. He's just Madame Cyril Ramaphosa. He becomes an ordinary man. Then criminal investigation comes in. Cyril is going to go to prison. The same way Zuma went to prison. He's going to go to prison. Mark my way. I always tell you these things and they come to happen.
Yes.
So I'm telling you now, like I told you before,
yes,
Phala Phala will never die. I'm telling you now, Ramaphosa is going to jail. There is no way Ramaphosa will not go to jail. Once the impeachment process opens up, the kind of shenanigans that are going to come out of that process, the amount of evidence that is going to come out of that impeachment process, there is no way Ramaphosa will not be arrested. Police must do their job and stop bringing money back here. I saw the provincial commissioner, Ari, Tamocharato, Tigua, the High Pada, Lukwa Union Building, so Thierry Nyakan Ibo Haute, Provincial Commissioner ya Haute, in a responsibility, Wapato, Sita, Aresana President, Journalesca Vekwa, Aresana President, we have a criminal. There is no criminal that must be treated with respect because that criminal has undermined the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. Today, for sure, all of you can see why they want me in prison.
yes,
Because if I'm in prison, all of this will not be possible. They want to silence me. They want to silence you by silencing me so that you never get to know the truth. At least I got the truth before I went to jail. At least I opened the eyes of South Africans before I went to jail. All of this worked against their plan because we as the EFF have got a giraffe view. We can see how the future looks like. Now is for Ramaphosa to use his conscience and resign as the president of South Africa and go and face the impeachment. We can't have a president that is doing the work of president and doing the work of impeachment. He must concentrate on one. He can't concentrate on the president. He has to concentrate on impeachment. This goes again to the doorstep of the ANC. They must choose South Africa or they must choose Ramaphosa. The Constitutional Court was very clear. The prima facie exists, therefore it must go to the impeachment. Let's see that story of theirs of step aside. Whether that step aside has got eyes or not. Because facing impeachment is equal to standing in a box in a court of law and being charged. Because you are only charged when there is prima facie. Now the panel said there is prima facie, meaning he is charged in Parliament. He has to face the impeachment process. Let's see if the step aside process only applies to certain individuals and doesn't apply to Ramaphosa. We know that it took long for us to arrive here. The Chief Justice has apologized. We accept her apology and we accept a wonderful judgment of this constitutional court. So fighters, there are a lot of fighters who are still coming. We are not going home. We are going to dance here, celebrate here, and march all over Johannesburg to celebrate the victory of the EFF, the victory of the people of South Africa. Manda!
Something must be done about the police who didn't do their job and the prosecution.
Mr. Malema, Lunga here from the Mail and Guardian. What I want to know, would you be lobbying some of those in the ANC to say, look, they must vote to impeach the president? And how long do you actually think this impeachment process would take for the president to be impeached? And lastly, would you look inside maybe somewhere in the ANC, maybe for the deputy president to take over if the president is impeached?
No. You know this judgment. If we had a responsible president, he should be resigning. He should be resigning to prepare himself to come and answer the impeachment process. Remember, even if he resigns, he must still come for impeachment. So you cannot have a president who's preparing an impeachment process this side and then occupying the office of the president at the same time. You cannot serve the two. One is going to suffer. So he should go and concentrate on this impeachment process because it has got serious implications on him as an individual. And if I were him, I should resign with immediate effect to concentrate on this matter. We are not going to lobby anyone in the ANC or in any other party. Let people use their conscience like Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma and say, I am for the constitution, I'm not for an individual. And today, Mama Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma is vindicated, and they should take a lesson from her that these things actually they should not be factional and political all the time. We should always look at what is in the interest of the country.
I wanted to ask
this time around, we want to appeal to the Speaker of Parliament that her conscience must come back and she must know that this is for the country now. It's not for any individual. And if she wants to go down with Ramaphosa, as people who have abused their power to hide corruption, we want the exit evidence of the 20 buffaloes that left this country. We want evidence of the men who came to buy buffaloes when entering the country and leaving the country. We want to see a declaration of those dollars. And you must know that in terms of the loss of the country, the only currency that can be used to transact in South Africa is the rand. Not even in Diamond Walk can you use the dollars. In the Diamond Walk in Sandton City. Now the dollars get to be used in the village if they can't be used in Sandton City. And we want to believe that they followed the law. This is bigger than what you have seen here. Behind whoever is going to be sitting in the impeachment process in Parliament, on behalf of the EFF, we are going to assemble a big legal team that is going to give the proper support to whoever will be sitting there. We will put our own resources to make sure that the EFF comes up with real evidence and real questions to investigate this matter. Sarah. I've never spoken to the president. I didn't see any need to speak to the president. We are here to serve the interest of the country, not the interest of the president. So I've not spoken to him, but if I were to speak to him, I will advise him to resign and go and concentrate on this matter. He should be ashamed that it took the Constitutional Court to say you cannot just push away a panel, a report that says there is prima facie evidence of wrongdoing, and therefore Parliament must first refer the matter to the impeachment. Once the impeachment process has concluded, even if it's negative on the president, let's say it says the president must be removed. That's where the voting comes in.
Historically, he's been an individual who's always, when it's hot under the collar, who's chosen to walk away. When he was not made SG, when he was not made president, he walked away. When this report was tabled, he contemplated resigning. Gwedemantashe had to mobilize ANC members for him not to resign, to contemplate him thinking of resigning in this moment in time.
This is an opportune moment for him not to listen to any individual. He must listen to what his conscience says. and therefore take a decision. They were saying he must not resign because they were concentrating on their factional interest. And therefore, the matters are now beyond the issue of factions. You have to say, look, it looks like this matter is too serious. It first went to the former Chief Justice, who was heading the panel. It now come back again to the Constitutional Court. They are not saying he did anything wrong, but they say there is a prima facie. Can you please subject this to some process, to transparency, so that the people of South Africa can be exposed to the facts? You can take your vote after if you want to take your vote, but let the people know what's happening so that they make an informed decision when the next election comes as to whether they still want to proceed with that criminal or not. But let the matters be open and transparent.
Are you going to be in the impeachment committee?
I'm going to the impeachment committee, you know that.
Won in court, in the Constitutional Court. How do you feel? How's the weather in EFF after this positive judgment?
Well, we've always made it warm outside the ANC. The EFF, it can be an irritation to all of you. But imagine where this country would have been without the EFF. It's not for the first time that the EFF comes here to rescue this country from the corrupt, from the people who abuse their power and abuse the office they occupy. You must be proud to have the EFF, and everybody must say, this is a party I want to associate with, because this party, it might have a rhetoric of the left, but it respects the Constitution. It uses the Constitution to the best of its ability. It stretches the law to make sure that South Africans are protected from those who have power and want to abuse that power for their own individual benefit. How do you tell your bodyguard to go and investigate crime that is committed in your farm? That is abuse of power. You must go to police station. All of us, there's nothing special about Cyril Ramaphosa. When there is a crime committed in my house, I can't send my helper. That bodyguard is a helper. He's not charged with the responsibility of investigating crimes in Villa Villa. There is a police station there. But because he thinks he's above the Constitution, the police station is too small for him. He's too big, and therefore he sends his bodyguards. All of that, all those bodyguards, all those helpers who were at the house, they will be there in Parliament to give their side of the story without being intimidated by police, without being intimidated by anyone.
The moment the ruling came out, Malema came out swinging. Calm at first, but with that dangerous smile politicians get when they know they've scored a major political point. He immediately said if Ramaphosa was a responsible president, he should resign immediately and focus on preparing for impeachment proceedings. Now imagine hearing that, as ANC members are probably already checking WhatsApp groups in panic mode. Because South African politics runs on two things: load shedding and leaked voice notes. Malema argued that a president cannot simultaneously run the country while preparing to defend himself in an impeachment process. According to him, one of those responsibilities would suffer. And honestly, whether people agree with him or not, you can already tell this judgment reopened questions many people thought had disappeared. For people who may have forgotten, the Phala Phala scandal exploded after allegations that large sums of foreign currency were stolen from Ramaphosa's private farm. Questions were raised about where the money came from, whether it was properly declared, and why presidential bodyguards were allegedly involved in investigating the theft instead of ordinary police procedures being followed. That alone had South Africans confused. Because ordinary citizens know if somebody steals your TV, you don't call national intelligence agents and a presidential protection unit. You go to the nearest police station and hope the officer taking your statement isn't on lunch break for 3 hours. But according to Malema, Ramaphosa abused power by allegedly allowing his bodyguards to investigate the matter instead of relying on normal law enforcement channels. He mocked the idea that the president could treat his security personnel like private detectives. And then came one of Malema's sharpest lines. He basically said Ramaphosa thinks he is above ordinary South Africans. That police stations are apparently too small for him, so instead of following normal procedures, he allegedly used presidential resources. Now, whether people support the EFF or not, one thing nobody can deny is that Malema knows how to turn legal arguments into political theatre. He speaks in a way that makes headlines almost automatically. And this ruling gave him a perfect opportunity. The EFF and ATM brought the matter to the Constitutional Court after Parliament voted against adopting the independent panel report. The panel had found there may have been a case for Ramaphosa to answer regarding possible constitutional violations and misconduct. But Parliament shut down the process before a full impeachment inquiry could happen. Now the Constitutional Court says that process was flawed. Malema immediately framed the ruling as proof that the EFF had once again rescued South Africa from corruption and abuse of power. And you could see the confidence dripping from every sentence. He even said South Africans should appreciate the EFF because the party consistently uses the constitution to challenge those in power. It was classic Malema, part activist, part courtroom commentator, part stand-up comedian. Then things became even more interesting when journalists asked him whether the EFF would lobby ANC members to support impeachment proceedings against Ramaphosa. Malema shut that down quickly. He said they would not campaign or beg ANC MPs to vote a certain way. Instead, he challenged MPs to follow their conscience and put the constitution above party loyalty. Then he brought up Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. Remember, during the original parliamentary vote, Dlamini Zuma was one of the ANC figures who broke ranks and voted differently from many within the party leadership. Malema said she had now been vindicated by the Constitutional Court judgment. That statement alone probably caused some uncomfortable silence inside ANC circles. Because one thing political parties hate is when rebels inside the movement suddenly start looking correct in hindsight. Now here's where the story becomes politically explosive. The Constitutional Court did not say Ramaphosa is guilty of crimes. That's important. The ruling focused on the lawfulness and rationality of Parliament's decision-making process. But politically, this is still a major blow because it revives scrutiny around a scandal the ANC hoped would slowly disappear from public debate. And Malema understands political timing better than almost anyone in South Africa. He knows perception matters. He knows headlines matter. And he knows South Africans are exhausted by endless allegations involving politicians, commissions, panels, inquiries, task teams, and investigations that somehow always end with nobody going to jail. At this point, many South Africans probably hear the word committees and immediately lose emotional strength. But Malema's strategy is clear. He wants to position the EFF as the party constantly forcing accountability when institutions fail. That's why he repeatedly emphasized that the EFF respects the Constitution and uses it aggressively to challenge abuse of power. Now critics of the EFF would obviously argue the party also thrives on political drama and confrontation. And honestly, South African politics without drama would probably last 5 minutes before somebody throws a chair. But what makes this moment important is that the Constitutional Court ruling gives legal weight to concerns the EFF and ATM had raised years ago. And social media exploded immediately after the judgment. Some users celebrated the ruling as a victory for accountability. Others accused the EFF of weaponizing legal processes for political gain. Meanwhile, ANC supporters tried to remind everyone that the court did not declare Ramaphosa guilty of wrongdoing. Basically, it became another normal day on South African Twitter, where every political debate feels one insult away from becoming a street fight. But Malema remained focused on one message: accountability. He insisted that anyone accused of serious misconduct should face proper processes, regardless of status or office. And honestly, this case touches on a much bigger issue in South African politics. Do ordinary rules apply equally to powerful leaders? That's the real question sitting underneath all of this. Because many citizens feel there's one justice system for ordinary people and another for politicians and elites. When Malema says, if a crime happens at my house, I can't send my helper to investigate, he's tapping into public frustration about unequal treatment and political privilege. That message resonates with many frustrated voters, especially young people who already distrust political institutions. And politically, this ruling could not have come at a more sensitive time. The ANC is already dealing with internal tensions, coalition politics, public frustration over the economy, unemployment, corruption fatigue, and declining voter confidence. So reopening the Phala Phala debate is the last thing some ANC strategists probably wanted. Somewhere in Lutherley House, somebody definitely switched off their phone after this judgment. Meanwhile, the EFF gets fresh momentum heading into future political battles. Malema knows every courtroom victory becomes campaign material. Every constitutional challenge becomes evidence for his supporters that the EFF is fighting powerful interests. And whether one agrees with him or not, the man understands political branding better than most politicians on the continent. He can turn a legal ruling into a full political narrative within minutes. 1 minute it's a constitutional court judgment. The next minute it's the EFF saved South Africa again. That's political communication at elite level. But the bigger issue now is what happens next. Will Parliament reopen impeachment-related processes? Will there be renewed investigations? Will ANC members unite behind Ramaphosa again, or will divisions deepen? And perhaps the most important question of all, how will ordinary South Africans respond? Because citizens are increasingly tired of political scandals dominating headlines while everyday problems remain unresolved. People still want jobs. People still want electricity. People still want functioning hospitals, safe communities, and economic opportunities. So while politicians battle in Parliament and courts, ordinary citizens are asking whether any of this will actually improve their lives. Still, one thing is certain. This constitutional court ruling has breathed new life into the Phala Phala saga, and Julius Malema made sure the entire country felt the political impact immediately. The EFF leader walked out of court sounding energized, confident, and completely convinced that history had just validated his party's position. And now South Africa waits to see whether this judgment becomes just another political storm that fades away, or the beginning of an even bigger political crisis for President Cyril Ramaphosa and the ANC.